right, in terms of the 14th Amendment, Section 4, this is the key provision. This forces Obama to act. It's not an option, Obama. It's not something you can invoke or not invoke. It binds you whether you like it or not. And what we see here is the 14th Amendment, Section 4, saying the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. Now, the interpolated part there in the middle refers to the post-Civil War situation. Seems to apply by extension to things like Social Security as a pension, although not included in insurrection or rebellion. What we're left with is the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law shall not be questioned. Now, the expenditures that we have are authorized. Everything in the fiscal year 2011 budget, all of those expenditures have been authorized once and appropriated once. They've gone through Congress twice. The budget is a law. It says you must make those expenditures. Every Treasury bill, bond, note is a contract with somebody to make a certain payment at a certain time. Sanctity of contracts must be maintained. And as we've just heard, the Social Security and related entitlement payments are also an implied contract, or maybe an explicit one. So the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law shall not be questioned. This is an imperative. It's not an option. It's not something that Obama can choose to invoke or not invoke. If he doesn't do this, he must be impeached. And what it means in practice is this. The United States, as of the 14th Amendment in the 1860s, is not allowed to default. Default is unconstitutional. Default is illegal. Default is a federal crime. And Obama is bound. Naturally, the Congress is bound too. But if they choose to act against the Constitution, the president shall take care that the laws be faithfully enforced. Now, in this longer article that I've got posted, I dispose of the various counter-arguments. The debt ceiling has been around for a long time. Not so. 1917, it was brought in with Woodrow Wilson as part of the very destructive reforms that included the Federal Reserve itself. It's part of the same takeover of U.S. finance by Morgan under the auspices of Woodrow Wilson and the New Freedom. So for the first 125 years, we didn't have it. We were doing fine. Now we've had a century where we've had it. We don't need it. The current form since 1940, but the result is the debt ceiling is unconstitutional. The debt ceiling violates the 14th Amendment. That has got to be understood. Some people say, how can you say that after it's been around for almost 100 years? Well, Plessy versus Ferguson said that racial segregation was just fine. And then it took, 60 years later, we discovered that it was not fine. The Dred Scott decision said that some races have no rights under the Constitution. Took a while to discover that that was baloney, too, and garbage. But we did it. We are not going to be the slaves to past precedents that turn out to be sociopathic and destructive, as well as violating the letter of the Constitution that we have. If somebody tries to impeach Obama, well, I'm for impeaching him under other auspices, not for this. If you want to impeach him, and impeach him on the War Powers Act, impeach him on Libya. We'll get to that in just a minute. The courts, well, if you have this decision made, it would be thrown into the courts, and that would then probably take us to the rats cabal, Roberts, Alito, Thomas, Scalia, with that swing vote, Kennedy. Well, fine. You want to politicize the Supreme Court? I'm all for it. Maybe out of that we could get some of those guys impeached. The lesson is the Supreme Court follows the presidential election returns and the will of the people. Ultimately, otherwise they will be impeached. And we should have impeached somebody along the way. Roger Taney, probably the main candidate to be impeached. So take a look at the article that I have up. Now, the question of the ratings agencies, let's not forget them. We have Moody's is preparing to attack Virginia and Maryland. This gang of speculators, this corrupt cabal known as Moody's, has announced their intention of downgrading Fairfax County and other areas here in the Washington, D.C. suburbs. The states of Virginia and Maryland are also under attack. Well, dear Attorney General Gansler of Maryland and dear Attorney General Cuccinelli of Virginia, you must act. It's time to investigate Moody's, Fitch, Standard & Poor's for possible collusion with speculators, for corruption, for all kinds of unwarranted influences that go into their opinions. We've had Standard & Poor's dictating policy to the United States of America. An unbelievable situation. Standard & Poor's says, if you don't cut $4 trillion from your projected expenditures, then you will be downgraded. Well, maybe they should be downgraded through a visit from the FBI and the Justice Department. We've got the shining example of Michele Ruggiero of Italy, courageous state prosecutor of Trani, down there in the heel of the Italian boot. He knew what to do. Take the finance guards and pay a visit to the local stock market association and probe the activities of the ratings agencies. Get them on the defensive. Do what Kennedy did to Roger Blau during that fight over U.S. Steel back in the Kennedy administration. If they act like a cartel, well, then you treat them like a cartel, and you sick the FBI on them. That's what Robert Kennedy was in the process of doing when Roger Blau decided to cave. So that's our precedent. We want the new frontier, Obama. Obama, Holder, give us the new frontier. Give us a RICO investigation of these ratings agencies. The other thing, of course, what Obama could do by himself, we've got the Trading with the Enemy Act. Suppose we decide that the ratings agencies are enemy aliens. They can be seized. Their property can be vested. We know all about that. TEA, there's the new Tea Party. Trading with the Enemy Act. That's what we need, applied to those ratings agencies. The other thing we've got to bear in mind, our form of government is in danger here. It ought to be obvious to everybody that if we choose default, bankruptcy, and chaos, this means millions of additional unemployed. This means tremendous social dislocations, social chaos. It's the responsibility of the president, whoever he is, doesn't matter. Wall Street puppet, illegitimate, legitimate, I don't care at this point, to take care that the laws be faithfully enforced. We can impeach him later over the War Powers Act and Libya. But right now, we need the 14th Amendment. We need a Treasury auction on Monday. You can do a snap one. Start preparing right now. Monday, August 1st, a Treasury auction. Get the cash to keep the United States in business, because default and bankruptcy are illegal. They've been outlawed, forbidden by the 14th Amendment. It's a federal crime. If you don't do it, you'll be impeached for sure. We got some Democrats, Elliot Engel of New York, doing yeoman service, and a couple of others. Let's give them their due. This was the rally yesterday at 14th Street and Constitution Avenue here in D.C. We have Gerald Nadler, Democrat of New York, Garamendi, Democrat of California, Donna Christensen, Democrat of the Virgin Islands. 1 o'clock yesterday, Thursday, the 28th of July, invoked the 14th Amendment in the absence of a bipartisan agreement to raise the debt ceiling and avoid national default. Go, Engel, and the rest of you. And notice, this is my critique here of Bernie. Bernie Sanders gets an op-ed in the Washington Post today, July 29th. Bernie doesn't talk about the 14th Amendment. I want to hear about the 14th Amendment, Bernie. I think you're pulling your punches. It's obviously what we need. So that's it in a nutshell. Take a look at Tarpley.net. U.S. Constitution forbids default. Back in a minute.